Milk. Got it? And if you don't got it, who do? Everyone remembers those silly little got milk ads from the 90s, except you don't because they're 10 times more unhinged than a stiff white upper lip. But why were they trying so hard to shovel a cow's milk down our throats by the gallon anyway? Are those ads solely responsible for my attraction to men with mustaches? Or is that because my father went out to get 3 Canadian bags of milk, and neither him nor his mustache have been heard from since? More on that in therapy. Did the dairy industry really have our best interest and literal skeleton bones at metaphorical heart? Or was it all an insidious conspiracy from a dying industry that goes all the way to California? Or, the top. And if anyone knows where a girl can find a top, please let me know down in the comments. Join me on an arduous journey as I risk it all to unravel a mystery that's been haunting a generation for decades. Why advertise milk, like just the vague concept of milk and not any actual brand, when everyone and their dead grandmother has a fridge full of the white milky substance? Oh hi, fancy meeting you here. My name is Brona, but my friends call me Brona, and if you could let my mother know to call me that too, that would be great. But this video is about milk, which has nothing to do with mothers. Welcome to my channel. Keep your shoes on if you like, but please stay on the runner. You can leave your likes up on the hook by the door and take a subscribe from the candy dish for later. I was thinking about the good old days again, by which I mean the days when I didn't have a full-time job and didn't have to pay rent and prior to my depression settling itself in. So, 1996. The 90s was full of weird happenings and whatnots. I mean, the whole decade is basically one long fever dream. But one thing that always struck me as particularly odd was the ubiquitous promotion of drinking milk. As a Canadian, I still can't hear Ode to Joy without hearing Drink Milk, Love Life. Drink milk, love life, drink milk. But I'm sure there's an ad campaign that we all remember more fondly, or at least just more, for the nonsensicality of their commercials, which no one remembers, and most importantly, for the celebrity mustaches, which everyone remembers even if they don't. The year was 1993, and culture as we knew it would never be the same again. Bill Clinton was inaugurated as president, things were going down in Waco, and making the biggest splash of all, the first Got Milk ad would be aired on television. Now, this was before Lin-Manuel Miranda had even heard about Alexander Hamilton, so only an elite few would have known the name Aaron Burr. But that's besides the point. The point is, milk could have changed this man's life, just not in the way you'd expect.
And that was the Vienna Wood Dance in D, one of my all-time favorites. And now let's make that random call with today's $10,000 question. It's a tough one. Who shot Alexander Hamilton in that famous duel? All right, let's go to the phones and see who's out there.
Hello?
Hello, for $10,000, who shot... Excuse me?
Hold on, let me get some milk. No!
I'm afraid your time is almost up. I'm sorry, maybe next time.
Got milk?
Apparently, and also allegedly, this ad was at the top of the award circuits in the industry in 1994. I'm pretty sure those awards were the Tonys. In 2002, well-respected and renowned journalist USA Today polled a small group of people, the American population, and you won't believe what they found. This commercial was one of the 10 best commercials, not just of any time, but all of it. This would set up the basic formula for the commercials. Some unsuspecting victim is in some unfortunate and often life-threatening situation, but they would have been saved if only they had had some milk. You know, as if milk was a rare commodity. In fact, in one commercial, there's an entire town called Drysville that has no milk, and it is devastating to the community. Ironically enough, Drysville does have running water, which is more than I can say for countless native reserves across North America, but the residents are reduced to eating cereal with tap water like animals, and who could think of a worse tragedy?
Until things get better, my cornflakes are cardboard. Cake tastes like a sweater.
Sometimes the commercials would make ludicrous and obviously, probably, blatant lies about health and the female reproductive system.
A recent study has shown that calcium may reduce the symptoms of PMS. Honey, I'm home. Got milk.
And then there's this.
I don't understand how this happens, how we go through this, how we get through this. I was brushing my hair the other day and I thought, me will never brush their hair again or yawn or pour milk on their cereal. Not now. Not after the accident. I have to tell Goose. He's still under the bed.
What? I thought we were drinking tonight. Oh, Caelan, you should really pick up this bottle.
No, it's too late. We're not supposed to move the bottle.
Got milk?
But things could have been different. Things always could have been different. Just ask my friend Sliding Doors. You see, initially, Goodby, Silverstein, and Partners, the polycule who created the Got Milk ads, rejected the Got Milk tagline, believing it to be lazy and grammatically incorrect. And while they were absolutely right about that, what they forgot is that most Americans are also lazy and grammatically incorrect. And so the tagline deeply resonated with them. Finally, they had a question they could not only understand, but could answer with a resounding, "No, but it is on my shopping list." And they were lapping it up like a cat drinking water from a leaky faucet. Not only did the commercials prove to be a hit with viewers between young and old, some of them were even highly controversial, pushing the limits of what could be seen on TV. At least, California Governor Gray Davis once tried to get one of the commercials banned.
Drink your milk, kids.
I don't want milk. Milk's for babies.
Yeah, babies.
Oh yeah? Well, I happen to know that milk helps build strong bones, so drink up.
Well, Mr. Miller told me he never drinks milk. Look at him.
Yeah.
Hi, kids.
Oh, that's not good.
Got milk?
The following phone call recording was sent in to me by... Indecipherable.
You can't do that on television.
We can do what we want. Besides, drinking milk is a time-honored tradition and is good for your bones. Why shouldn't the people know? Don't you care about the children, Governor?
Yes, of course, but the last thing the American government wants is people knowing things.
That's the beauty of our ads. They still don't know anything, but if you want them gone, you're gonna have to take that up with the Dairy Queen, and she is not very open to suggestions.
But I don't like it. It's so scary.
It's not even half as scary as what we'll do if people don't start drinking more milk. I trust you know that, Governor.
Unfortunately, we never found out what nefarious schemes they had planned because that's where the recording ends. Not to mention that I made all of that up. It is not, however, where the incessant milk campaigning ends. You see, 1995 was a really big year. I was learning about shapes and colors in the AB etc. O.J. Simpson was declared not guilty despite, his probable guilt. Alanis Morissette released Jagged Little Pill, but Jagged Little Pills were not the only thing we were being asked to swallow. The Got Milk slogan was licensed to the National Milk Processor Education Program, which is apparently a thing, and which is affectionately called Milk Pep. And you're not going to believe what happened next. Rounding up each and every celebrity they could, herding them into luxurious dressing cages and shooting them, and then using those photos to promote milk. You might even recognize some of these outtakes from the photo shoots because You couldn't line a hamster's cage in the 90s without coming across some celebrity with a milk mustache plastered across their smiling upper lip, telling us how much they loved a glass of milk. All the while, it wasn't even milk that adorned their lips, but a mixture of milk, ice cream, and sour cream. Will the lies never end? I'd show you some of these ads, but frankly, I don't want to. And you've already seen them anyway, unless you haven't. So here they are, celebs with milk mustaches interspersed with some men with mustaches who I would like to milk. Comment below if you can guess which are the celebrities and which are the men. But this is all crazy, right? Why advertise milk? Surely we don't need to convince people to buy the milk of cows because it's a household staple. Well, I looked into it a lot of bit, and guess what? As it turns out, milk is not a staple. It's a liquid. And sales were actually pretty sour. In fact, sales hadn't been great for a while, so the American government stepped in because the American government really wanted us to get milk because the American government got too much of it. When we return, we'll find out if milk has been around for more than 10 years or if we're all being lied to. We'll learn just how the war on Christmas has negatively impacted milk sales. And perhaps, most importantly,
seductive, tempting, unsanitarily. The scent that's going to make him lean in close and say,
Did a baby make throw up on you?
God old delay?
I'm gonna be Lisa Frank with you. I am probably not the best person to tell you about the rich and creamy history of the dairy industry, or the rank and sour malpractices that come along with it. There are definitely better informed people with videos on that topic that you should watch. None of which I'll link to, but you will find in the description. I will, however, give you a skimmed version because in my household growing up, that's the kind of milk that was ever present in our fridge. You see, I never really put much thought into the history of milk because I just kind of assumed it was always a major part of our culture ever since the first cow. But if milk really is such an integral part of our cultural identity and has been since the dawn of cows, then why the need to advertise it to us? Well, that's because, like most things that are advertised, sales peaked in the 40s, specifically 1945, which is well known to be a year that happened sometime in the 40s. And they've never quite been the same since. Perhaps a little boom in sales around the time of the pandemic, but like most things pushed by the government, that was probably more related to public panic than anything. Before the 20th century, milk was largely unheard of, by which I mean people knew about it and it was definitely a thing, but it wasn't a staple on people's grocery lists. Much like Staples. But most people would have been familiar with it in one of its other guises, such as butter or cheese, as these were processed and would therefore keep longer and had less chance of killing you and the baby you thought you might raise to someday be impoverished and miserable. The drinking of fresh milk began to rise in popularity among young people who had no other choice because somebody else was deciding what was good for them, and their mortality rates were rising just as steadily. Most people didn't make any connection between the two, but on one fateful day, Dr. Hervey Thatcher would witness a miracle that would help change everything. A filthy, dirty, disgusting rag doll fell into a milk bucket, and the milkman merely scooped it out and continued serving the milk, leading Dr. Thatcher to think, you know what? Maybe that's not very sanitary. He would then go on to invent the first glass milk bottle, which he would call Thatcher's Common Sense Milk Jar. He decided on this name because it was meant to contain milk. And he was also right. It was sensible. Much more sensible than a bag of milk. Around the same time, other people were also starting to think, well, if people are going to keep consuming this bacterial cocktail anyway, is there anything we can do to make it safe for consumption and maybe even save a life or two in the process? And a lot of people would say no. But there would soonly be a process called pasteurization, which actually doesn't come from the fact that cows, and the egg-laying ones, are often found in pastures, but from, and it pains me to say this, the French. Specifically, French chemist Louis Pasteur. While it was initially used for more important and significantly less harmful liquids like wine or beer, Further experimentation proved it to be useful in eliminating bacteria from more patriotic liquids like milk or beer. This was such a huge breakthrough that barely anyone acknowledged or accepted it. In fact, it was met with widespread opposition. People insisted on hitting it raw because it felt so much better. They said that pasteurization gave milk a nasty metallic taste, unlike the delicious taste of pure raw milk that's been sitting in a nasty metal bucket for several days. Physicians claim pasteurization would destroy the vital nutrients in milk, such as bacteria growth. Farmers worried about the economic pressures on them, now that they may be held responsible for all the people they were poisoning. Others claimed that enforcing pasteurization would rob American citizens of their right to choose, a claim that I think we'll see come up a little bit later. Regardless, when cities such as New York started showing significantly lower infant mortality rates coinciding with the introduction of pasteurization laws, people started to think that maybe, just maybe, safe milk and living babies were a good thing. But what does all of this have to do with whether or not I got milk? Well, in 1914, just as Little Miss Milk's popularity was blossoming, a little war was also blossoming. A little war that was so big it would be called World War I in anticipation of a sequel. To help prevent malnutrition among troops, who were mostly still growing boys, the government was sending large amounts of powdered and canned milk overseas. This increased demand in dairy products led to farmers diverting the majority of their resources into dairy production, which was all well and good for everyone involved until the unthinkable happened. The war ended. Now we had a surplus of dairy products, nobody who wanted to buy them, and farmers couldn't just stop producing so much dairy, that would be silly, which meant an ever-increasing surplus. Throughout the 20s, campaigns asking people to eat more milk began because no sensible and self-respecting adult would drink a glass of milk. In place of the previous warnings about the potential health hazards of milk consumption, we now had the government's assurance that milk was healthy for you, all of which did very little to convince anyone, and so by the 30s, dairy farmers were staging strikes to demand fair prices for their troubles. Realizing that adults couldn't be bothered with milk, the government decided children would be their next target. This would lead to the Federal Milk Program for Schools and the National School Lunch Act of the 40s, which would essentially be advising people that 4 glasses of milk a day was required for a child to be healthy, despite it being enough to drown a medium orphan who would have seen it coming if they were such a good medium. To this very day, and probably many others that came before it, the National School Lunch Program requires children to take at least 1 carton of dairy milk directly from a cow. But there's only so much milk you can feed a kid before they become an adult. And the government had to figure out something else to do because it was now the 70s, and while love may have been very free, milk was very not. So James Entertainment Carter, more commonly known as Jim E. Cheese, signed the Food and Agriculture Act of '77, vowing to buy up any unsold dairy product at a set price, effectively creating a demand where there was none and never would be. Since none of these farmers living off of government subsidiaries were on food stamps or welfare, it came as a total shock when said farmers started ramping up their production yet again, knowing whole well that it was easier to churn a profit from the government buying up overstock than it was to sell people shit you wouldn't buy yourself. There was now even more of a dairy surplus than ever before, and the government had to do something because they had spent a good $2 billion on dairy products nobody else wanted to buy. That's about 16 billion doll hairs today. If you've ever wondered why people sometimes use words like cheese or cheddar for money, you're in luck because you're about to find out. You see, as liquid milk spoils very quickly and has been known to kill people because of it, hence being known as the silent killer, the government performed a little alchemy and turned its milk into cheese. That's where the ch in alchemy comes from. And it wasn't just any cheese, but government cheese, which is worse and is donated to food banks, elders on Social Security, and welfare beneficiaries. If you ask the government about it, they'll tell you that it slices and melts well, which might be the absolute least you can say about cheese. Allegedly, there is about 1.5 billion pounds of government cheese being stored in what's called the Missouri Cheese Caves. I I know that sounds absolutely fictional, but unlike both the dairy industry and the government, I wouldn't lie to you. Except for all of those times I already did. When I first heard about this, I assumed it was an urban legend or a joke, but nope. Beneath Missouri, there are secret, well-documented caves made entirely out of cheese. Okay, so they aren't made out of cheese, but there is a vast network of warehouses converted from limestone mines below Missouri that are used to store all of this overproduced cheese. And those caves? Not even close to enough space for all of the cheese. The moon was entirely fabricated by the American government out of cheese, which is why they had to fake that whole landing business. And that brings us up to today. And by today, I of course mean the 1990s. The government has inadvertently created such a surplus of milk that they're quite almost literally bricked in by blocks of cheese with no escape in sight. And so they start feverishly advertising milk. They present to us fictional realities that show us just how bad life could be if there were ever a milk drought. And they tout milk as if it's Pirelli's miracle elixir, but for your hairless skeleton. And the truth is, milk isn't even that good of a beverage, and it isn't good for your bones either. A large study in Sweden over the course of 20 years showed that people with higher milk intake not only had more instances of broken bones than those who consumed less dairy products, they were also more likely to be dead by the time the researchers went to follow up. All of the nutrients that supposedly make milk such a superfood can be found in different food sources that are better for you, such as the sun. But the lying didn't stop in the 90s, and it didn't end at food regulations and guidelines either. A whole new set of lies was churned out when big dairy pharma realized there were alternatives to their substance that seemed to be gaining in popularity, particularly among small niche political groups such as the lactose-intolerant left. After the break, we'll finally get the answer to questions we've been asking vegans since some day. If milking a cow is so wrong, why are you doing it to oats? Can you even really call it milk if it comes from a farmer's nuts? Do you have any good recipes that you could hook me up with?
Sometimes I think about how it could have all been so different. How adversely my life could have been impacted. I mean, when you think about it, and I haven't, I might have never been able to walk or get out of bed to run in that race that I got acknowledged for my participation in. I was able to grow healthy bones and heal from the osteoporosis that I never even had. And for that, I'm thankful for her bravery, her generosity, and her sacrifice.
Milk. It's easy to give.
Aubrey Plaza is an unknown actor that you may know from such things as being a page at NBC, a brief internship on SNL, or the state of Delaware, which most people have no idea exists. But she really hit the big time when she landed a starring role in this critically reviewed commercial.
The world's first and only milk made from wood. Our eco-friendly, artisanal, free-range wood milk. Is wood milk real? Absolutely not. Only real milk is real. Then what did I invest in?
Now look. No, seriously, look at me. I'm talking here and it's kind of rude that you're just doing dishes or whatever. I am not one to shy away from wood. I like the look of it. I like the feel of it in my palm. I like to learn about different types of trees, such as palms. And more importantly, I am certainly not one to shy away from an innuendo. I like the look of it. I like the feel of it in my palm. But this ad is just terrible. The way it makes it out like there's no excuse or reason for plant-based milk, that the whole concept is deranged as if like 80% of the world's population isn't lactose intolerant to some degree because actually, mammals aren't meant to keep drinking milk well into their twilight years. It largely seems like a setup for Aubrey to make a dick-in-cheek joke about wood, which is just very low-hanging fruit. And listen, I love a guy with a set of low-hanging fruit. This is just a snapshot of a larger movement against plant milks, or against calling them milk anyway. There are literal laws in place that prevent plant-based milk alternatives from using the word milk. Much of the reasoning being that it dupes the consumer and deprives the consumer of choice, all of which is really rich coming from an industry that has made most of its cheddar from duping the customer and doing everything in their power to try to deprive us of a choice when it comes to drinking milk. But while Aubrey Plaza and whoever she works for are out here insisting that the only milk is real milk and that any alternative to that would be weird, no one seems to be pointing out that what's really strange here is that what they mean when they say real milk is very specifically cow's milk. Milk from any other mammal, including from a human, gets a specifier so that the consumer will be aware of what they are purchasing. You know, sort of exactly like how they would be labeled oat milk or almond milk as opposed to just simply milk. But I guess that's not clear enough for the intelligence of the American population, so they've demanded that milk alternatives cannot be labeled milk, as it contains no dairy. Just wait until they find out about milk of magnesia. The truth is, juices from plants has been part of the English definition of milk since at least 1200 CE. The Wabanaki people used to make milk and baby formula out of nuts. Granted, the American government has been trying to do away with Wabanaki customs for centuries. There are recipes for almond milk in the Middle East that date back to the 13th century, which again, I understand the American government would be very opposed to anything from the Middle East. But almond milk was a more popular drink than dairy milk throughout Europe during the Middle Ages, and Americans basically are just middle-aged Europeans after all. Plant-based milks are an integral and important part of our culture, and they provide a safe alternative for people who can't digest dairy. And yet we have actual people in Congress, such as Mike Simpson, walking through grocery stores and placing stickers saying, "This is not milk," on cartons of plant-based alternatives. Not that I'd expect a member of Congress to be mature or sensible, but honestly, at what point does someone not stop and look at their actions and think, you know what? This is dumb. So where does that leave us? Well, it doesn't, because the government is still buying up surpluses of milk and pouring billions of dollars down the drain each year in doing so. Maybe next time you want to berate someone for being on government handouts, you should save it for a dairy farmer. That rotting, sour stench of spoiled milk will linger for centuries to come. We're still going to wage worthless little battles like whether or not almond milk is actually milk, while we ignore actual issues like whether or not Batman Returns is a Christmas movie. But I know that, for me, I will no longer be godding milk. There are better liquids to drink, like vodka. And it's actually been a great addition to my coffee. I've been so much nicer in the mornings. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite got milk ad was growing up, or even just now. Also let me know what your favorite milk alternative is. Soy, almond, man. If there are any other mysteries you'd like for me to solve, feel free to let me know. Please remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more of me. I'll die if you don't. You can follow me on Blue Sky and also sign up for my little Patreon if you want me to keep being gay. I'll die if you don't. And I would also super appreciate the support. Bye! Oh my god. Subsidiaries. Just saying dairy whenever you can. Honestly, I think subsidiaries is cute. What else do you call it? It's government milk, bitch.